Evening and welcome to the school committee meeting of November 9th, 2016. I'll begin by calling this meeting to order and reading the mission statement. The mission of the Wakefield Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students to be lifelong learners who are meaningful contributors to society and meet their academic, social, civic, and physical potential. I'll turn to the public and see if there's anyone who would like to comment during the public comment period. And seeing none, we will move on to the Student Advisory Council.
Two new members of our team. They can introduce themselves.
I'm Callie Bennett. I'm a senior at Wakefield High.
I'm Kai Carioli. I'm a junior at Wakefield High.
And to begin, so the first thing is there's a football game Friday night against Gloucester at Landrigan at 7 o'clock. Most other fall sports have ended, and winter sports sign-ups are starting this week. And all students are encouraged to sign up for a winter sport. And also students are encouraged to talk to administration if they want to start a new club to get people more involved in things that they would like to start in the school.
Today, the high school had a half day, and there were parent-teacher conferences held from 12 to 2, and they're currently being held from 6 to 8. This Friday, the high school has no school in honor of Veterans Day. And Tuesday, report cards will be published at 2:05. And parents are encouraged to see Mr. Metropolis's principal post about how to access the report cards.
So this past Friday and Saturday, the fall shows were a success. In addition, the annual Veterans Day Assembly will be held this Friday, the 11th, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And this will be held in place of the in-school assembly that usually takes place, and it will be held in the Galvin Middle School auditorium. Future performers will include the members of the Wakefield High School Band as well as the chamber singers. And the junior versus senior Powder Puff game has selected a date of Tuesday, November 15th to be held.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from members of the committee?
Right, the report cards are now totally electronic. There's not going to be any hard copies.
Correct. No paper copies.
But there'll be a lot of confusion on parents' part for the first time.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so it's my understanding we're trying something a little new tonight with budget items coming next, so we'll go to Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is nothing spectacular to report. Everything's running fine. We still have not encumbered salaries as we're finishing up the final retro payments from negotiations. Those should all be completed within the next 2 weeks. So with a lot of work and a little luck, we'll have all salaries encumbered for the for the December 1st budget reports. Still waiting for a couple of grants to come in. Is there any questions on the local budget? Still waiting for a couple of grants to come in. We do know the amounts. We're just waiting on the approval of our grant application. They're entitlement grants, so there shouldn't be any issues. I know that Mr. Lyons and Ms. O'Neill have put a lot of work into getting all their T's crossed and I's dotted. So we don't anticipate any issues on grants, but we're still waiting for the final approvals to come in. And in the area of revolving accounts, nothing spectacular to announce. Everybody's looking good. Athletics is above board. Performing arts, school lunch is a little behind, but that's just because we've made a payment to Reading. It's early in the year, so that'll certainly come around. It does every year. We did receive our first payment from Circuit Breaker for the new year, and I'm working with special education right now to transfer some tuitions that they had charged off or open requisitions and purchase orders for to the local budget to transfer those off to Circuit Breaker because the local budget was overtaxed in that line item. So other than that, everything looks pretty good on the financial statements. Any questions? Great. We did want to give you an update since our last personnel report. We had a big one early in September, and these are some additional changes to our personnel since we presented early in September. We have brought on 10 new teachers and a speech and language assistant since September. Mr. Jason Wallace has taken the assistant principal position at the Dolbear. We brought on 10 paras or support personnel to replace people who had left who had moved on to other positions. One new clerical person, one new custodial person, and 3 new cafeteria workers. I also wanted to mention that Ann Doherty over at the Woodville, the clerical secretary, had been here for many years, has retired effective September 30th, and Therese Jarmusic from the Galvin Middle School has retired effective, I believe that should be 10/5 and not 10/25 for anybody who's keeping notes, but 10/5, Ms. Jarmusic retired from the Galvin Middle School as the assistant principal. And then I have a few gifts tonight. The first that I asked that the school committee accept a gift in the amount of $48.35 from Bhushan Kulkarni. He's a parent at the Greenwood School, and he is part of a matching donation from his employer. So this is the first part, and I'm sure at some point we'll see the match come through from his employer. So thank you. It's an amount of $48.35.
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Questions, comments? All those in favor?
The second gift tonight is from the Warrior Strength and Conditioning Program run by Mr. Greg Gibbs, one of our athletic, physical education and athletic teachers. It's a gift for miscellaneous equipment. It's in the amount of $949.70. So I would ask the school committee to accept that donation.
So moved.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Pifferling. Consent agenda. Do you want to?
Move that the school committee approve the minutes of the October 25th, 2016 meeting and accept the minutes of the October 28th, 2016 school committee finance and facilities subcommittee meeting as presented.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Thank you. We have a motion for a field trip approval.
Move that the school committee approve a 2-day overnight field trip to Quebec, Canada for Galvin Middle School students departing May 25th, 2017 and returning May 28th, 2017.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Dr. Smith, I don't know if you want to say anything about this one?
I just want to mention that Roseanne Bacchus is here today, and she's leading the trip if anyone has any specific questions for her, but she's just here to see her field trip motion on the table. So if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to ask.
Any questions, comments?
It's a wonderful experience for the students with the French immersion.
Yeah, it's a great trip. My daughter went on that and had a wonderful time. Thank you for doing it.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes. There is nothing under number 7. We will go back to Mr. Pifferling for the budget timeline.
So in your package, you will find the draft budget timeline that was presented to the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee last week. And then we tweaked with it a little bit, so we feel pretty comfortable with the dates on there. That's for the FY18 budget season, which concludes at the next town meeting in May. So you do have the timeline for the budget process.
Any questions or comments on the timeline?
I don't have a copy of that, but there are maybe a couple of key dates. There are some, do you have them? I don't have it now, sorry. There is a couple of forums. There's a staff forum on January 4th at the Wakefield Memorial High School, and there's a State of the Schools address given by the superintendent at the Galvin Middle School. That's for all community members will be invited to attend that. It's at 7 o'clock at the Galvin on January 11th. Those are a couple of key dates. And then, obviously, as we get into the budget presentation, we'll be presenting to school committee on February 28th, looking for an public hearing on March 14th, and an approval by school committee on March 28th. And then that would then be followed up by town meeting early in May.
Questions?
Okay. I thought I had another meeting on my calendar. It's not in here. For the 18th?
The 18th.
Oh, it's there.
It's on there.
I'm sorry. My bad.
Okay. Capital planning.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Sorreo and Mr. Lyons up, since we'll all be participating in the next few agenda items. So I will turn things to Ms. Soraya to present the proposed capital expenditure request, to kind of review it with us, and then would really love to not only get questions from school committee, but maybe some input in your thinking on your ideas on how this should play out.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present. The list you have in your packets this evening is the result of a process that includes the building principals, as well as myself, the custodial staff, and the DPW. We arrived at the list through all of that, as well as working with the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee, where we presented this list as well. You'll note this year, for those of you that are familiar with the format, that we changed the format a bit. We are still, however, always mindful and vigilant relative to student safety and comfort, as well as anything that helps promote and support the educational setting of the schools. So key among them, and certainly leading our priority list this year, are the HVAC systems in both the Dolbear and the Woodville schools. You'll see throughout the listing here that all schools are represented with the exception of the Walton. The Walton limited scope feasibility site study will address and inform any alterations or any facility needs that we have moving forward. So that's sort of been carved out of here. As well as you see that there are still a considerable amount of Wakefield Memorial High School elements here. We did, however, not want to lose the fact that there are significant deficiencies in the building that definitely impact the accreditation status, but those have been carved out, and you'll see those at the bottom. Those total a little over $18 million. This list here, you'll also note items with no dollar amounts allotted to them. Those will be worked and estimated on by the DPW. Things like surfacing parking lots and some of the larger external camera and those kind of projects. It also includes several technology requests, and there are three of those. One is the projector deployment, which is really phase 2 of the district rollout of our projector. External cameras, and that is specific to the high school, and those are really broad range panoramic cameras to the outside, the exterior of the building only. And the last technology one is for a wireless access point expansion, and that's a district-wide project as well. Food services is represented on our list this year with some equipment replacement, and that's primarily located here at the high school, but there is one piece of equipment that needs to be repaired at the Dolbear warming unit there. Also athletics, you'll see noted here. Athletics at Walshfield, there's a significant requirement there for safety fencing and netting. It's for both the safety of our players, but also certainly the safety of our the folks watching the games and participating that way. Also at Walton Field, which is located at the Galvin Middle School, we're looking to purchase some composite benches there to allow for some seating for, again, spectators that go to view those games. Key among the safety and security, I would point out the rekeying of the high school as being fundamental, of fundamental importance there. Basically, re-engineering our access control points for the building. You'll also see considerable points of playground equipment, and that really means to deliver accessible, meaning meeting ADA requirements, accessible playgrounds, most specifically at the Doyle, but certainly at the Greenwood and adding to the Woodville location as well. The Woodville right now has one play structure that is not accessible. The enrollment there really leads us to requiring another piece of playground equipment that's more in tune to the kindergarten, I'd say K through 2 age group. Questions? Lots of priorities.
I have one question, Maria. The visitor management software. Do you think that maybe that could or should be a technology request? Do you think that's something that might fall into that bucket, or?
It doesn't require technology. It is a software platform, and really that's an ad that I believe falls under security. So certainly it's incumbent upon all departments within the district, and it really is based. It's a software program for each front office to be able to have. So
that
really, it could go.
I go either way, but maybe more facilities.
I would argue for that. But. But certainly, I think it's worthwhile, whether it's technologies or facilities related.
Other questions?
On that note, which program are you looking at?
Raptor?
Okay, I'm familiar with that.
Okay.
Where I subbed, that they've had it for 2 or 3 years. The staff has kind of got mixed reviews on it. You may want to inquire with people who are using it, because it's convenient in that, like, I have to provide my driver's license once, and it stays in their system, so they can
It's
print a
routine.
badge anytime I go to the building without having to redo the ID. But I think that the secretaries have found it cumbersome. I don't know that there's a better system, but they find that it'd still be cumbersome.
And certainly, based on the dollar amount, we would look to get and to actively get quotes, additional quotes. So we'd be researching additional platforms as well.
And on the rekeying of the high school, are you talking about all the interior doors?
All the exterior doors, not the. So, and I'm not sure how long, and perhaps Dr. Smith can help me here. Fairly recently, all of the classroom doors were rekeyed, so I don't necessarily think we'd need to redo that effort, but certainly all the external doors, most certainly.
So you're going more with the swipes, not the actual key, then?
A combination of both. You always have to have a key override, but it's really a process of changing out the locking mechanisms. The cylinders, exactly.
Other questions, comments? So it's my understanding tonight is a presentation. We'll be voting on this at our next meeting on November 22nd.
Yes.
Great.
The next steps after that, once this committee approves them, they will be submitted to the DPW on or about December 1st by Dr. Smith.
Right, any feedback that anyone has between now and that next meeting, please let us know. I think we've got that priority order the way we felt that it makes most sense. Okay, so. Next.
Superintendents, Dr. Smith.
I'll invite Ms. Sorreo to maybe just give everybody an update on the high school senior site study. It was a pretty exciting day.
It definitely was. So on Thursday, October 27th at 11 a.m., a team from the MSBA performed a senior site study visit here at Wakefield Memorial High School. The visit afforded us with the opportunity to present the high school, warts and all, and truly showcase our commitment to quality teaching and learning. The focus on instructional strategy, our inclusionary culture, and 21st century learning expectations appeared to be well received, I would say. We remain both hopeful and encouraged as our team was well engaged. They asked many questions and really took a long view. They were here longer than they actually had anticipated, so we took that to be very encouraging. Thanks go to Steve Mayo, Representative Broder, and Joe Bertrand, the chairman of the PBC, for their presence and support. That community engagement is vitally important to the process. The next steps will be the Facilities Assessment Subcommittee of the MSBA will meet on December 14th, and at that time, they'll make their recommendations on the invitation into the eligibility period for 2017, and we would hope that we would hear something in December, but certainly no later than mid-January. So,
Questions, comments? Great.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We're doing everything we can to get in the game.
So we'll find out in December
Possible.
if we're on the list?
We hope so.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's exciting.
When I was at the MASC conference just this past week, I went to an MSBA presentation, and the leader, Jack McCarthy, was there. He had mentioned that maybe it would be January, so I'm thinking either December or January, we should know one way or the other.
And we want a phone call, right?
We do.
We want the
Yes.
phone call, not the letter.
Yes. And then, and if you're not invited in February, my understanding is as they begin to invite people in, or school districts in, so, you know, some may or may not engage, some may or may not be able to follow through with community support. So I know that additional invitations sometimes come in the spring. I think you're kind of on a waiting list, so.
And I think as funding becomes available, as projects come off their books and others come on, or they're not able to be supported by their community, certain parameters change, and so that changes the venue for everyone else,
Yeah.
the opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, next on my agenda is the Leslie University Partnership. Just things have really been evolving with Leslie University, and Chairman Liakis had asked me to give an update to the full committee on kind of both the financial picture and also the educational programming piece. So I just invite Mr. Pfeffling and Mr. Lyons to update the committee.
I guess I'll go first. So Dr. Lyons, Mr. Lyons, soon to be Dr. Lyons, will do the instructional piece, and I'll kind of update us on the financial piece. As most of you know, Leslie years ago was participating in our program. They were running a Saturday program, a cohort on Saturdays at our Woodville school, and they had recently wrapped that up and had started some Thursday cohorts at the Galvin school. So the Woodville school program was once a month. It was Saturday and Sunday, so it was a weekend a month, and they got through a class every 6 weeks, or 8 weeks, like they would in a college, typical college environment. Then they went to the Galvin, and they were running from 6 to 10 on Thursday evenings, and they were running every Thursday evening. So that was kind of an experiment on their part, and one that we were happy to engage in because it didn't increase our costs really from a custodial standpoint. So it was kind of a win for them and a win for us. Unfortunately, they're experiencing that the Thursday night class is not drawing the enrollment that they were hoping for, and that they want to go back to seeing the successes that they had on Saturday programs. So Mrs. Sorreo and Dr. Smith and I met with the powers to be at Leslie University, and we discussed their needs and we discussed our needs and came up with kind of a plan that we presented to them where they could rent up to 5 classrooms for a weekend, one weekend a month, for the cost of $4,000 for that weekend. So that would cover our custodial costs, it would cover some of our building needs, and it would also put a little money back into our budget for curriculum and needs that we had identified in our budget. So we felt that that was a really good opportunity for us to work with a partner of ours to do this. I think that they were hoping that Thursday nights would be more successful, but they've really saw a lot of success. Another benefit to this, and I'm not going to mention the campus, but they are in the process of closing down another campus and making Wakefield their primary north of Boston satellite campus at the Galvin Middle School. So I think that they're really committed to us, and they really want to be here. They see the advantages. The train station's right there. It's very close to Boston. There's bus lines. It's easy to get to. The facility is state of the art. Parking is not a problem on the weekends. So they're just absolutely loving the idea of being in Wakefield with a lot more opportunities for their weekend program. So,
Questions on the financial portion, Mr. Callahan?
Just on as far as the $4,000 and the covering 5 classrooms, and you say it covers the custodians and like some overhead. Are they using our materials? Like, are they using our computer labs, or are they bringing their own devices, or how is that all working?
So they bring their own devices. They also contract with a Wakefield employee to oversee their technology needs and whatnot within the building, and they contract with that person with our permission. So they use our projector, and that's about all in the classroom. So a classroom projector. Other than that, they bring their own devices, which our employee assists them with getting connected on the first week of class. If it's a new teacher to Wakefield, if it's an existing instructor, they're pretty familiar. We give them swipe cards for access so that we can track who's in and out of the building. We give them swipe cards with their names on them so we can always track who's in the building and who's out of the building at any time. Our employee is also on site along with custodial services, so we kind of have a double coverage there. So we have something written in our previous contract about if they need copying services, there's an upcharge for that, but they come pretty well prepared. They don't usually need our printing or copying services.
I was just concerned about wear and tear.
Yeah, they're not using our Chromebooks, they're not using our teacher devices, they're not using our, I don't even know, computer labs at Galvin, I don't even know where they are. Everything's one-to-one over there. So, yeah, I mean, they are truly self-sufficient from that standpoint. All they use is our projectors. And I don't even know if they're on our network. I believe they're probably connecting through HDMI to the projector, so they're not even really on our network for that purpose either. They are given Wi-Fi access so that they can get onto the internet.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Leslie's a very advanced program. They're very self-sufficient, and they have a training program for their instructors when they start presenting at satellite campuses.
And at this point in time, they're not using Woodville at all anymore?
I think that program has fully wrapped up. Yeah, that was a Saturday program. I think that wrapped up within the last year. But then they were geared more towards Thursday nights, just couldn't get the enrollment that they wanted. They were getting enrollment, just not what they wanted. And that one, we were getting a piece of their action, per se. We were getting a percentage of their revenues on every student, and if they weren't getting the students, we weren't getting the revenues. So this Saturday weekend program really it benefited both parties. You know, Leslie was going to increase their enrollment, and we were getting a flat fee, so we didn't have to wonder. I don't think worry was ever an issue, but wonder how much we were going to get or who was going to enroll or whatnot. So,
Other questions, comments? Mr. Lyons.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I appreciate it. So in regard to programming for educators, we are continuing our partnership with Leslie and working with them to do some professional development for us here in district. They are in year 2 of a program where they're working with pre-K and kindergarten teachers to develop play-based learning centers. And so last year we had 6 teachers that agreed to pilot and work with 2 professors from Leslie. They worked very closely with them to develop kind of play centers that were academically standards-based. And so what this does for students is a couple things. One, it allows us to kind of work on some academic standards, but as important, if not more so, in the pre-K, K area, it allows students to develop their kind of pro-social skills, their ability to negotiate, their ability to kind of regulate themselves and kind of agree with one another, to talk with one another, which really kind of translates into them having more kind of self-confidence in their ability to kind of learn in other areas outside of the play-based centers. The centers have included areas like math, architecture, and one of them, they've done a social studies and science unit. They're just so impressive to see. And so in continuing that work this year, we got all of the kindergarten teachers together with the pre-K teachers, and we got together at Woodville, and the teachers shared the centers that they developed last year as part of the pilot. And so it was particularly, I think, a great day for the kindergarten teachers. First, I think it highlighted for me how particularly experienced and talented the group is. They're really quite amazing and really self-sufficient, and what they do in kindergarten classes is quite impressive. But their ability during that day to not only collaborate with the professor from Leslie, but also to hear from one another and to share their practice about how they've developed centers, how it's translated for kids, how students have also kind of been an advisory for teachers in kind of growing these centers and growing these ideas. It's really, really worked well. So we're pleased to be continuing that. In addition, in the spring of this year, in 2017, we will be partnering with Leslie to take on some practicum teachers, which we're excited about as well. We kind of see that as kind of a long-term job interview, if you will. I mean, it's kind of a recruiting space for us to really figure out if the practicum teachers might be a good fit for openings that we have in the spring. So we're pleased to be able to be working with them on that as well. And I can certainly take any questions that you might have about either one of those kind of programs or initiatives.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments?
How many of these practicum students, what would you anticipate?
So in my conversation with Leslie last week, they said that they're going to have between 2 and 6 teachers, and they may have more. So they're kind of, so this is still, yeah. So because it's early, Chris, because it's early, they're still working on their numbers. But, you know, what we've asked of them is to kind of get us a list of, you know, what you're looking for. And we'll try to make appropriate matches that can both help us and help the practicum students.
It's really another real benefit to taking practicum students is we talk a lot about student-teacher ratio. I mean, yeah, student-teacher ratio, especially with our younger students and having, you know, those who are really just on the cusp of receiving their certification. You really have another professional in the classroom to help with individualizing learning. You know, I think once teachers start taking in practicum students, they really like working with a person who's entering the field, and it really can benefit the classroom, benefit students. and like you say, we're building some bench strength, if you will,
Yeah.
at the same time, so.
That's great.
So I think in every way, our partnership with Leslie is growing and evolving in a really positive way. Thank you. So just one other, on my other section that I just wanted to mention is we've really wrapped up kind of we refer to October as our school safety month. We do a lot of practicing of our drills and evacuation protocols and those kinds of things. So just a couple of quick little updates. This was the first year that we implemented the ALICE drill for K to 4, and it went very, very well in all of the schools. And our pre-K teachers are now being trained. We don't train students at that age, but the teachers know what to do, and we're training them. So all of the ALICE drills went very well. So we can really say now definitively that we are an ALICE-trained district, and we just keep refining our practices. But probably the most important thing that happened this fall is we tried our first parent reunification drill at the Dahlberg School. And so in a parent reunification drill, that's when there was an emergency where at some point you need to reunite kids with their parents, to dismiss kids to go home in some kind of an emergency. And typically it's after you've evacuated a school. So that can be very tricky, and that's a piece of our plans we're really working on. And I would say there's not a lot of school districts that have actually practiced a parent reunification. So the Dahlberg, Dr. Hughes, she really just took the initiative to say, okay, when we practice our evacuation drill and we move to our level 3 evacuation space, we'll do it so that it kind of matches up with dismissal time, and we're going to ask our parents, communicate if there was ever an emergency. We're just going to run through the protocol of how you would pick up your child, and it involves, there's really quite a bit, that's involved in it. Everyone has roles. How do you, parents come in, they presented their ID, some paperwork, a runner goes and gets the child, matches them up, checks the ID again. The police were there. They kind of helped monitor the situation. So it was really well done. And the district crisis team now is bringing all of that information back to the table, really talking about what went well, how do we tweak it, and then so we're disseminating that information out so that every school has a really strong parent reunification plan. So just wanted to update the committee on that this evening.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Subcommittee reports. So Mr. Markham for Finance and Facilities is not here, but obviously the brunt of that has been the capital planning, which we heard about tonight. I don't know if you have anything about that, Chris?
No, we're just meeting again this month, so.
Okay, Mrs. Danny.
We're all set. We have not met. She passed all the labor contracts, so.
Ms. Morgan.
We have also not met. Dr. Smith, I will follow up with you on the email you sent me.
A couple of possible policy items that I sent to Ms. Morgan to think about our getting together.
Great. Future dates and agenda items. The next meeting, obviously, the 22nd, where we'll be voting on the capital requests. School committee comments.
I just might have
Sure, Chris.
a future thing. I've been reading about some of our neighboring districts are considering dropping out of NEASC. And at some point, I'd like you to maybe get some feedback prepared for us and explain why you would like to stay, or you're also considering leaving or not. I don't need an answer now.
Yeah.
I didn't tell you about it.
It's okay for me to answer right now that I think where a strength of this, being involved with NEASC at this time, is that really around the facilities, and the fact that we are on accreditation warning is pretty significant in regard to just highlighting the needs of the facility. So I think that's a time that I would want to stay connected until we see this through. I think there's but in regard to restarting a 10-year cycle, I think that's really when we will need to look at what many districts are looking at in terms of what the changes are in the NEASC accreditation. Do we want to continue to participate? There have been some changes. So we're due again in 2021 will be the beginning of a 10-year cycle. So we have a little ways to go. We just passed the 5-year mark, so all the heavy lifting is done. There's one more small report that happens at the 7.5-year or 7-year mark or so, and so I think right now, I think just the fact that we have the warning status connected to the facilities is probably a good enough reason to stay where we are. Does that make sense?
Are there competing companies or?
No, I think it's more that what has really changed well, what's really changed is education. I think the accreditation process wasn't really matching the needs of what all our districts were kind of living through in regard to, in the last 5 years, as you know, there's been a big shift to new standards, to a new supervision evaluation system. Just a lot of changes in education were happening at a really rapid pace, and I think a lot of districts were finding that what it takes to go through the self-study and the evaluation process with NEASC is very intensive, and I think districts were saying this is right now not matching our needs, and we don't have the professional development time to really address a self-study, for example, because we're so busy with many of these other initiatives that are on our plates. So I think NEASC has really been trying to shape their work to better match what school districts need. So I think as the time comes around, when we get to about the 7-year mark or so, I think we should probably take a look and see where they are, how it's evolved, and whether or not continued participation makes sense.
Great, thank you.
Okay, school committee comments. Mr. Massey.
I'm good, thank you.
Ms. Morgan.
Nice job tonight.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Callahan.
I want to congratulate the marching band on their NESBA finals last weekend, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. They scored a 96, which was maybe the highest they've ever gotten. It was a platinum medal. They came in second behind Dartmouth, but it was a phenomenal finish for them. They should be very excited.
Mrs. Danahy.
I'm all set, thanks.
And I will just congratulate our legislative delegation on their re-election. I look forward to continuing to work with them. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of November 9th, 2016.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you.